welcome to our Saturday Matinee with Heritage Mississauga. I'm Matthew Wilkinson, historian with Heritage Mississauga, and this is part 3 of our ongoing story of the giants amongst us. This is not a definitive who's who of Mississauga. Certainly there are people that we have not connected with and may do in future episodes. Who knows, we might do a part 4 of this down the road. But it's a fascinating look of the legends, the giants, if you will, many of them who have helped to shape this place we call home today over time. It's a chronological look, so if you missed the first 2 parts of this, I encourage you to go back and take a look at those and meet some of the people that truly did help shape the identity of the place that we know as Mississauga today. So starting with part 3, we're going to jump into to our first person here, and this is Sidney Belford. He was a First World War veteran, born in Cooksville in 1889. Served as a police constable, much beloved and respected police constable, and our first police chief in 1938. Also a truant officer, and was known a giant of an individual with a belief in kind of supporting the youth of the community, seen as compassionate but firm, really an unspoken hero, and we see that a lot, particularly in references after his passing, an unspoken hero within our community. He and a second officer, only 2 officers, handled all the issues for 10,000 residents here in historic Mississauga in the late 1920s. And a quote on him: "A man of morals, strong convictions, upheld the law, treated everyone with respect and expected the same in return." So Sidney Belford seemed to be an absolute giant within the community in terms of local law enforcement, but just a respected individual who commanded respect and expected it and treated others with respect as well. So again, someone who was much revered and respected within our community. From there we go to Evelyn Kennedy, and absolutely fascinating story. If you have a chance to read a book by Joyce Beaton on the life and times of Evelyn Kennedy, known as When Lightning Strikes, it is well worth the read. She was widowed at a very young age, left with multiple young children, and the 7 young children. Unbelievable trials and tribulations for a young mother, particularly on the eve of the Great Depression. She was supported by a family around her, including Colonel T.L. Kennedy, who we met in a previous episode here. The Kennedy family lived in the Dixie area of historic Mississauga. In the Depression, she wrote a show known as The Kennedy Kids, which was a radio drama that her children starred in, really exploring kind of their weekly exploits, her numerous rough and tumble boys, if you will, that were involved in all kinds of kind of activities and humorous moments in time. This was a show that was picked up and eventually broadcast across North America, and even in some cases, episodes made their way to the troops on the front line in the Second World War. So just kind of a remarkable story for a local show, and it really goes into some detail in When Lightning Strikes on these connections to this Kennedy Kids show from Evelyn Kennedy. During this time, she also worked at Small Arms Limited down in the Lakeview area. Was known to ride her bicycle from her home near Dundas Street and Dixie Road all the way down to Lakeshore Road and the Small Arms Limited factory. The strong family ties to the community, and many of her children ended up in public service roles. Some politicians in the family, including the late Harold Kennedy, a beloved local councillor for a number of years. But just kind of remarkable traits for this family, and really explored well the life and times of Evelyn Kennedy, raising as a single mother her prolific and very active and indeed rough and tumble family of the Kennedy Kids here in Mississauga. And again, many of those children growing up with such a strong role model became role models of their own very active and respected in local affairs, and so well worth a read. When Lightning Strikes: The Story of Evelyn Kennedy. One of the more popular ones, or one of the more common questions we get, involves around Colonel Harlan Sanders in particular. Why is there a Harlan Sanders wing, or the Kentucky Fried Chicken wing, if you will, at the Trillium Hospital, formerly the Queensway Hospital down at the Queensway in here, Ontario? Colonel Sanders of the Kentucky Fried Chicken fame, developed his business interests in the 1930s, and then eventually franchised Kentucky Fried Chicken in 1952. There was some challenges south of the border for him, in which he lost some ability to use his own marketing and his own name, if you will, and he came seasonally to Canada, living in Mississauga between 1965 and 1979, at what is now what remains a private home today at 1337 Melton Drive. But he was quite prolific in this community, quite well known. One of the first Canadian franchises of the Kentucky Fried Chicken business, if you will, were started in Mississauga, one along the QW, another along Lakeshore Road, and still yet another on Dundas Street near Old Carriage Road. These were some of the earliest franchise restaurants in not only in Mississauga, but in all of southern Ontario. And donated money, quite a philanthropist, and Colonel Harlan Sanders Family Care Center at the Mississauga Hospital, now part of the Trillium Hospital, was named because of this bequeathment out of the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken, who again lived in Mississauga between 1965 and 1979, down in the Applewood area of Mississauga. And there we go to Kate Aitken. Many of those who are listening to this will probably remember Kate Aitken and some of her radio and television broadcasts about, particularly about cooking, but also housekeeping and the like, became quite famous through CBC Radio. And she broadcasted between the 1930s and late 1950s. And throughout this time, she actually lived on Mississauga Road, just south of Streetsville, near where Mississauga Road bends over the Mullet Creek, north of Burnthorpe Road today. Considered by many to be the most famous Canadian female broadcaster of her era. And not only that, she was a documentary journalist and a columnist for the Globe and Mail. Expert on cooking, baking, etiquette, manners, and the like. Quite a popular following in the years that she was broadcasting her show from her home and set on Mississauga Road, south of Streetsville. From there, we go to Grand Duchess Olga Romanov, and the last Grand Duchess of the Russian royal family. She was the youngest daughter of Tsar Alexander III, and Empress Marie Fedorovna, and she was a cousin of many of the royals in Europe, some of whom continued correspondence with her, and of course sister to Tsar Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia. During the First World War and the rise of the Bolshevik movement and the eventual fall of Nicholas II, Grand Duchess Olga fled Russia in 1919, first to Denmark and then England, eventually coming to Canada in 1948, and then residing in Cooksville along Camilla Road in 1952. There were notable royal visits to Canada during her time in 1952, 1954, and 1960. There are stories of those who either traveled to Olga's small house on Camilla Road and met with her there, or Olga herself would travel to visit some of her cousins as they toured Canada. She was quite humble in her demeanor, in her appearance, in her living accommodations, compared to what many believed a royal should be, but nonetheless she had these strong ties to the royal family herself, again, a Grand Duchess, but again, never putting on airs. She became a personal friend and confidant to Major James Rattray of Rattray Marsh, who's also well known to the Hancock family of Hancock Woodlands, who lived also along Camilla Road at the time. Just a remarkable story of this forgotten element of our time. You can look at one of the publications on her is referred to as the Last Grand Duchess, and again tells the story of Grand Duchess Olga Romanov, who lived at least briefly in Cooksville from between 1948 and the mid 1950s. She eventually moved to Toronto, where she passed away in 1960. So just this time, and there's the one picture we have there is Olga standing at her front door on Camilla Road, the small house on Camilla Road in Cooksville. And herself at a time there became quite a prolific painter, and so there are some examples of her artwork around as well. So just a remarkable kind of unknown story, or a relatively unknown story that connects to some of the people and some of the significant people who lived in Mississauga over time. From there we go to Mary Fix, and many of us have been inspired by the life and times of former Mayor Hazel McCallion, one of the most significant personalities to have a hand in shaping the city of Mississauga. But when somebody like Hazel McCallion, who many of us connect to and are inspired by, references Mary Fix as one of the people that inspired her, it gives us an opportunity to look significantly at Mary Fix herself. Mary was born in Ottawa and had a legal career in Ottawa. Was a little frustrated by the opportunities that were available for women in the legal career and how to rise within that profession. After she married, she relocated to Toronto Township, and she was a seamstress. Her husband was a pianist at the time, and just out of kind of a drive to see improvements in her community, she entered Toronto Township politics in 1953, and she was the first woman to enter politics in historic Mississauga. She was elected in time, and she served as a reeve, the forerunner of mayor, in 1954, in 1955, 1957, 1958, and 1961. Just an incredible run at early politics here in historic Mississauga. She was also the founder, or one of the founders, and on the original board of directors for the Toronto Township Historical Foundation, now Heritage Mississauga, in 1960, and involved with the saving of the Bradley House Museum. Commissioned under her tutelage of Reeve, or time as Reeve, she commissioned a video known in 1957 as the Cinderella Township, which was a promotional video for Toronto Township. You can incidentally watch that on YouTube today. If you look up Cinderella Township, Mississauga, you'll find this remarkable promotional video. And she really was a champion for all things Toronto Township, now of course Mississauga. Just a remarkable and respected career, and a politician who was a force in her community, and many who served with her found it very difficult. One said, difficult to disagree with Mary Fix. And she convinced many that she was in the right, and her ideas for future growth were very much helped shape the identity of Mississauga. And you can just see that through the concepts that were explored and shared in the Cinderella Township video in 1957, again under the direction of Reeve Mary Fix. From there we go to Jan Zurakowski, known affectionately as Zura. If you up in the Ward 5 area near Hershey Center, you'll find Jan's Trail, a recreational trail, and that is named for Jan Zurakowski. Jan was a Polish Air Force pilot in the Second World War, and after the Second World War, he arrived in Canada in 1952, and served as the lead test pilot for AV Canada, principally for the CF-100 and eventually the CF-105 program, the CF-105 known better as the Avro Arrow. He retired in 1958 and then relocated to Barry's Bay, Ontario. If you're ever up in Barry's Bay and you see a replica scale model on display of the Avro Arrow, that's the connection. It's, Jan Zurakowski, who was very much involved with the Arrow as the lead test pilot retired to Barry's Bay, Ontario. And so just a remarkable little story here of Jan Zurkowski, his connections to historic Mississauga, to a specific moment in time, a very short-lived moment in time. He's only here between 1952 and 1958, but his name is recognized, and again, you'll find his name on the landscape today with Jan's Trail. And there we go to George Hunter. I had the opportunity to speak with George on a couple of occasions in the past before his passing. He was a renowned documentary filmmaker and freelance photographer, and just a remarkable individual with such an extensive career. Some of his collections are with the Art Gallery of Mississauga. He was the first photographer accepted into the Royal Canadian Academy of Arts. One of his photographs was included in Voyager 2 space-time capsule. And many said he took more pictures of Canadiana than any other person in history, and he's the most collected photographer in the history of Canada. So just, remarkable things, and such a humble individual who lived on a small house along Mississauga Road, just north of Dundas Street. George Hunter, remarkable. You can find his collections in multiple locations. In fact, if you search his name online in photography, you'll come up with some wonderful resources on the individual, who unfortunately again passed away in 2013. But George, well remembered and well respected in this community and beyond, and well worth a look at the life and times of the career of George Hunter. From there we go to Macklin Hancock, a visionary developer, someone who really thought in terms of the concepts of new town developments and the inspired by the traditions of shaping communities and the lives of people who live in those communities. He was born in China in 1925 and settled here after the Chinese Revolution with his family in 1929. He came to Canada with his parents, who purchased a property along Camilla Road, and which they named Woodland Nurseries. He was then joined by his younger siblings, Don Hancock and Marjorie Hancock. Out of this kind of humbler rural agricultural beginnings, blossomed a renowned international urban planner. For his work over time, he received numerous accolades, well-deserved, including the Order of Ontario. He was a veteran of the Second World War as a pilot, and one of the quotes from an award gala that he was being honored at, there was nothing he couldn't do, nothing. He was highly intelligent, highly principled. He had high expectations of himself and others, but a true gentleman. Remarkable individual. I had my own opportunity to meet with him on several occasions, and never a dull conversation. Just incredible memory and just an incredible passion and insight and depth of perspective. Just remarkable, humble individual who really did help physically shape the lives of thousands of people, not only here but around the world. And just his company, again, Project Planning Associates, active in Toronto, Bahamas, Kuwait, Pakistan, Australia, China, Afghanistan, Mississauga, places around the world. Macklin Hancock has in some way rubbed his particular look at planning on countless lives, and just a remarkable individual, based here on Camilla Road in Mississauga on a property known as Hancock Woodland. So just a remarkable story, remarkable individual. From there we go to Oscar Peterson. Lived on Hammond Road for much of his life, south of Dundas Street, near what is the Sheridan Mall. Renowned Canadian pianist and composer. He has a street named for him here in Mississauga, and the founding patron of Heritage Mississauga as well for a period of time. Raised in Montreal, but moved to Mississauga in 1971. Considered Canada's greatest and foremost jazz pianist. His career lasted over 60 years, numerous honors and awards, just probably too numerous to offer. Attended St. Peter's Anglican Church at Arundel, buried with honors in the cemetery behind. Truly, philanthropy and patron of the arts were in his blood. Just a very giving individual in this community, and very gracious to those who knew him. And yet, with all this fame, also humble in his own right, and lived quietly on Hammond Road, just south of Dundas Street, for many years. From there, we go to Bruce McLaughlin. Ron Duquette put together a video a few years ago called "Father of the City." I believe it's available through the Mississauga Library System, but well worth looking at the vision of a man who, through his company, S.B. McLaughlin and Associates, had a vision for a city that would become. He was the builder of Square One and city center developments in the 1970s, a very far-thinking and far-planning developer and builder. President of the Mississauga Board of Trade, involved in the Mississauga Symphony Orchestra, the Mississauga United Way. Countless other organizations and charities benefited from his connections. He's also can be largely associated for saving this historical landmark. We know it as the Cherry Hill House. Today was moved under his company's direction in the 1970s. But again, this idea of something we come to know very well today as Square One and City Center were really creations of S.B. McLaughlin Associates under the direction of Bruce McLaughlin. Indeed, the idea was if a city was going to happen here, it was going to start at Square One, which is where the name for the massive shopping center at the heart of our city comes from. This idea of driving commerce and shaping the way people will live within this community, of building a city where one did not yet exist. Quite a revolutionary concept. And at the time, he was joined by other developers like Mark Burrow, who developed Meadowvale, and Air Mills Development Corps, who developed Air Mills. Newtown developments that were part and parcel with City Center Developments and S.B. McLaughlin and Associates. Really, the three of them seen as the big three that helped develop the core of what is the city of Mississauga. You can again, look at the life and times of this remarkable individual and the concepts that really did pave the way for Mississauga in the video Father of the City. You can also peruse a book by Tom Urbaniak known as Her Worship, which is really a story on the development of Mississauga under the life and times of Hazel McCallion, but the developers, the big three, Mark Burrow, Air Mills Development Corporation, and S.B. McLaughlin Associates, really factor prominently into the analysis of those early development years of the city of Mississauga. From there, and to end this third installment of The Giants Among Us, we'll finish with John Lennon, yes, of Beatles fame. He was here for a very short period of time, but his presence has echoed down through the years. In fact, many of those who were alive at the time John was here, it's continued to be one of those connection points to their former years in the city of Mississauga. He was only here for 2 weeks in late 1969, staying with Yoko Ono at the estate known as Brayburn, the house of Rock and Ronnie Hawkins on Mississauga Road. The house is still there, a private home accessed off of Folkway Drive today. But Ronnie Hawkins had this grand country retreat, if you will, and John had come through a speaking tour and an activist tour in Canada and was looking for a place that he could, for lack of a better word, hide and recharge his batteries a bit. That place was found with Ronnie Hawkins' property on Mississauga Road. John said in an interview afterwards that it was idyllic and it was the most peaceful time that he had ever had. was staying a couple of weeks in December of 1969. His stay, as well as an interview, was covered in the Mississauga News and Mississauga Times. People in Streetsville even remarked that John, once walked up Mississauga Road to a general store in Streetsville to buy cigarettes, and created quite a hubbub within the city of this individual who was world famous at the time, and yet finding a moment of peace and relaxation on a farm on Mississauga Road, just south of what is now the QEW, and that was Ronnie Hawkins' farm. That picture at the bottom there is John Lennon and Yoko Ono together with Ronnie Hawkins. There is a legend, if you will. We'll end the story on Mississauga Legends with a legend within that legend, and that is that the story Imagine was written in Mississauga. We don't know if that's true. We do know that a piano was brought to a small log cabin on the property where John and Yoko had stayed, and that many late nights apparently John would be playing the piano. This was, again, his visit here was in late 1969. Less than a year later, Imagine was released, and so Imagine, if you think of the lyrics within the song, kind of those odes to peace and of better, quieter days, and then you look at John's quotes about how idyllic and peaceful his time in Mississauga was. Quite a possibility, if you will. So the next time that you listen to Imagine, that world famous song by John Lennon, think of those times in Mississauga that he would have spent those couple of weeks on Mississauga Road, playing in the snow, or riding a snowmobile, and living on the property of Ronnie Hawkins as a rural retreat from the stresses of the larger world of demonstrations for peace and movements against war, and in addition to his extensive and famous musical career, quite a local connection to a brief moment in time, and quite a strong memory of that moment in time when John Lennon stayed on Mississauga Road in 1969. Thank you very much.